What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and I have got a great episode in store for you guys today. We have got a lot to discuss from our opinions on the Patriots as they hit into week one of the NFL regular season, to the future of the Boston Red Sox, and so much more. Obviously, I've had a bunch of guests rotating on the show throughout the summer trying to, break down a lot of these stories, and I have yet another great guest. He is the host of the Mark and Kitchen Show on WEEI 103.7 FM in Providence, and he is also a former Bryant University alum. During his time at Smithfield, he played collegiate baseball for the Bulldogs and was also a radio host at the WJMF radio station. So from one WJMF radio member to another, it is my pleasure to welcome to the show the one, the only Mr. Mark Dondero. Mark, how are you doing, my guy?
Brian, thanks so much for having me. WJMF, the beat of Bryant. I love it. I miss it. The glory days.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a great time. We got our 50th anniversary coming up in the fall. Great
No
things
way.
are
Awesome.
Yeah. So great things are coming up on the horizon for the station, and I'm glad to have you on.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for the people down in Providence that kind of know your show, they'll have a better idea for you. But I have a more Massachusetts-based audience. So when I spoke about you, I kind of inquired about your path into radio and some things like that. So if you wanted to summarize kind of your trajectory since Bryant and how you've gotten to where you're at today, the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. So when I graduated Bryant, I didn't have much of a demo, which was more my own fault. I just kind of thought, I'll put some stuff on tape, but presentation matters. You know what I mean? So I got my demo organized a little bit after Bryant. I used some of the stuff I did at WJMF and at the TV studio there. What's that, Koffler? Or I can't remember.
Yeah, over in Koffler.
Yeah, so we did some of that. And then I actually joined, like volunteered at a youth, or not a youth, I guess, station, but like a town community access cable station. They have more of those, I think, in Massachusetts than Rhode Island.
Yeah.
But it's just like a town access, public access channel. Did some stories, local things that allow me to build up my demo for TV. And then I got my first TV job with that demo in Dalton, Georgia, about 12 years ago. Okay, so we're talking like 2010, went to Georgia for 2 years, covered high school football, intense high school football coverage, covered some college sports, then went to Mississippi for 2 years, covered a lot of college sports, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, ended up back in Providence in TV. I was a beat reporter for the Patriots. A lot of questions to Bill Belichick. I covered them from 2013 to 2017, 2018. So it was, some big time seasons there with a couple of Super Bowls, and it was a fun time to be around the team. And then in the midst of that span, I ended up starting the show at WEEI in Providence. The Mark and Kitchen Show has been going on since 2017. I've been doing it ever since. And recently they moved me up to Boston. I've been doing some shows in Boston as well. So that's sort of my trajectory and path. It's been kind of crazy. And I should also add, when I started this in 2009, it was like it's different. Like if you were going to ask me, like for you, what you should do, I wouldn't advise doing what I did. Like local sports on TV, not the same as it was 12, 15 years ago. So it was, I kind of went into it right as it was transitioning, which was sort of bad luck for me. Because some of the skills that I spent years trying to, I guess, cultivate or whatever, ended up, I don't want to say useless, but they weren't as coveted as they were when I started. So I've tried to pivot, become more of a personality, and we'll see where it goes. I feel like you have to wait your turn sort of in this business, as you'll figure out. Some people find it a little earlier than others, but I still feel like I'm young enough, and I'm going for 5-6 years here on WEEI in Providence. We'll see where it goes, but it's been a fun process. I've enjoyed the ride, and I'm continuing to enjoy it. So that's sort of how I got to where I was, or where I am, and we'll see where it goes from here. But it's been a crazy trip.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know that you have that experience of asking some questions to Bill Belichick. Maybe it can give us a little bit of an insight onto how they're feeling this season. So obviously the Pats just wrapped up their third preseason game against the Raiders. You can say that there was some good, some bad, but most people, there were some takeaways from the game, and the biggest viral clip of the night was probably that horrendous Mac Jones interception where he's rolling to his right, throwing across the field. And what was it, like quintuple coverage he was throwing into? Like, that that's one of the, worst throws that I've, ever seen from, Mac, in my opinion.
Okay, so the one pass that I would think about giving him, probably wouldn't give it to him, but I think about it, is there was a camera angle that they showed. I don't know if it was like the second or third replay, but you could kind of see how maybe that linebacker was like shielded by the lineman and the defensive line. So maybe he just like couldn't see him. Because other than that, it was an atrocity of an interception. I mean, like you said, triple, quintuple coverage, whatever. And that linebacker was, I mean, it's not like he kind of came in from the side. He was standing there basically right in the way. Yeah. So I'll give him, like, I get it. It was chaotic. And if you break down the stats, Mac Jones under pressure this preseason, not good. Most quarterbacks aren't good, but he was especially not good in the preseason under pressure. So that's all concerning. That interception was a disaster. We'll see what happens. I have my theories about what we're going to see come the regular season based on what we've seen. But yeah, I mean, it's not good. Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to sit here and pretend that it's good? Like, this team is unproven. You know what I mean? They're not a proven commodity. Maybe if this was 2015 or 2016 and you had Brady and Edelman and Gronk and Amendola and all these veterans, James White, veterans that have proven it, they've done it, they've been there, they've won games, we know it. Then maybe you could convince me that the preseason is ridiculous, like doesn't matter, it's meaningless essentially, and that come the regular season, we're going to see the real Patriots and we know what we're going to get. This team is not that. We don't like, he was good. Mac was good in his rookie year, but he's still by and large unproven. And because of that, I was hoping to see more in the preseason. I was disappointed that more of the starters didn't play in week 1. I thought that was a wasted opportunity. And as a result, they played in week 2 and 3, but they didn't look good. So I don't like, overall, I feel bad about this offense going into the beginning of the regular season, which, as we all know, those first 4 games are tough. So I don't feel great right now. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. I don't think they will by and large. More on that in a little, but I do think they're going to have a tough time of it offensively in the first 4 weeks.
I mean, first 4 weeks are going to be tough as always. And, you're starting it off with Miami, which is always a buzzsaw for you. So that's no help either. No matter how good or bad Miami is, they're always just going to pose a challenge to you. So you go into that. And then, I was kind of replaying, that Mac pick. And I was trying to think, where have I seen something like this before? And honestly, it looks like a pick that you'd see a Giants quarterback or a Lions quarterback throw. And that's what makes me nervous about Matt Patricia and Joe Judge running the offense now. That's what's really alarming to me. I mean, I see these guys out there and, Josh McDaniels did a great job with Mac. And we were going to be fools to think if no NFL team was ever going to give him a shot again. Obviously, he was going to, that incident with the Colts, it's gone. It's, over almost 10 years ago now at this point that happened. So he was going to get another shot. He did with the Raiders, and now he's caught on there. And, let's face it. He kind of exposed Mac Jones in this game. And now you got Joe Judge, who, I think is a terrific special teams coach. I think was able to do a great job when he was with us in that regard. Obviously blew up with the Giants, and then Matt Patricia, who blew up with the Lions. They're coming back here now. And the fact that they're in charge of Mac Jones and his development is a disaster.
Yeah, and not only that, Josh McDaniels in that same game had Jarrett Stidham looking like Dan freaking Marino. So that didn't help So here's what I'm going to say about that. Obviously, there's some trepidation in terms of the prospects of Joe Judge and Matt Patricia leading the offense, okay? Yeah. It is what it is, okay? Because I'm going to say this, and he knows this. Everybody should know this. If this doesn't go well, especially from a coaching perspective, this is you won't see me one time criticize Matt Patricia or Joe Judge. They shouldn't even be in this role. This 100% goes on Bill Belichick. So all of my criticism and angst will go on squarely onto Bill Belichick if this doesn't go well. Okay, now I'm not 100% convinced in totality it's not going to go well. I think they're going to find some things. They'll find a rhythm. Mac, I believe in, but this is Bill Belichick's making, and Bill ultimately will be Bill Belichick's doing. So we'll see what happens. I don't know how Mac Jones' development is going to progress here. I will say, in turn, you brought up the Miami game. I do think that Belichick is embarrassed. I think everybody is a little ornery over the fact that the Patriots did not play well during the preseason, and that's essentially the narrative here. They've got 2+ weeks, dating back to the last preseason game before Miami, less than 2 weeks on whatever date we're talking about, August 30th. They I believe, will play a good game against the Dolphins. I think they're going to put their best foot forward. I think they're going to have their best game plan. I think they're going to be ready to go. I don't think it'll be enough. I think they'll ultimately lose, but I do not expect them to go out there and have Mac throwing a bunch of interceptions like the one we saw against the Raiders the other day, and then they just lose by 21 points. Like, I don't expect that. I think it'll be a grinded out slugfest. They try to wrestle Miami into playing their style of game, which I expect to be low scoring, run the ball, play defense, shorten the game. And see, I just don't think that they're going to have a meltdown and look horrible in week one. Now we'll see where it goes from there. But in week one, I do think they'll be able to get it together enough where they look representative in that game. But after that, all bets are off.
Yeah. I mean, do you really think that Belichick is kind of disappointed and all that stuff? Because I mean, he'll end up saying that, it is preseason. I know he'll end up saying, oh, we aren't playing our best brand of football, but he also would turn around too and probably say, oh, these games don't matter. It's the regular season. It's December. That matters. Are you how do we really know that he is taking this as seriously as, we would probably take it?
I mean, I think he's doing what I think he's trying to do what's best for the team in certain regards. I don't know if bringing in Joe Judge and Matt Patricia were the best for the team in terms of the coaching staff, but that's a separate discussion. I mean, I think it does matter to him. I think he would have, what are you saying? It wouldn't have mattered if don't you think he would have preferred them to play well? Like, that would have been better. So it's like, he can say whatever he wants. I don't believe it, and I don't have specific evidence to point towards, I guess. But if you want my opinion, I think he's pissed. I think he hears the noise out there, and I think he's going to be out to prove something against the Dolphins, and I think that's going to manifest itself in the form of a good game plan and a quality effort. Now, like I said, I don't think ultimately it'll be enough because I don't think they're on the same page. I don't think they've gotten enough reps together. I don't think they're talented enough necessarily. So I just don't see it coming together to result in a week one win in, like you said, a place where it's essentially been a buzzsaw for them. But I do think he's pissed. I think he wants to show people that this team will be ready to go, that the preseason doesn't matter, whether it does or doesn't. I think he wants to prove in his own regard that it doesn't matter and that they're going to be ready to play well. So, I wanted them to play well, and it goes back to what I said. If you had a proven commodity, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal, and Bill could have said those things, and I wouldn't have disagreed as much. But this is an unproven team that last we looked at them, they were getting destroyed in a playoff game in embarrassing fashion. So it's everybody's net now, to quote the Herb Brooks from Miracle. There are no guarantees. I need to see quality play and production, and that begins in the preseason. And there's no reason for me to think they're going to be able to flip some switch and end up playing well come the regular season if I don't see anything in August.
Yeah. Something else that's alarming as they go into week one against Miami too is, how their defense is really going to step up. Obviously, the loss of JC Jackson in that secondary was something that, people were feeling throughout this preseason. There was no real, obviously you got Malcolm Butler, which was which was an interesting pickup to, get him, bring him out of retirement, bring him back. And, he's going to be more in a backup role anyways, but you never really got a true replacement for JC Jackson. You essentially just took the two guy and just slotted everyone up a spot. So I'm worried that, guys are going to essentially be out of position, and this is really just going to blow up in their face.
Yeah, I think based on what JC Jackson wanted in terms of money, I don't think there was any way they were going to pay him. I don't think they should have paid him that because I don't think the Patriots are close enough. I think the team he should be playing for is who he is playing for, or a team like that. A team that feels like they might be a piece or two away from doing something special. And then you pay the top corner big bucks to come in and hopefully put you over the top. We saw that a long time ago. 2014, Darrelle Revis came here and did that.
We saw it again with Stephon Gilmore.
Stephon Gilmore was a part of that, right? So, that I think you're more. That's a team, the Chargers, that should be doing that. The Patriots. Here's the concern, Brian, with the defense this year. Now, the jury's still out. I have my reservations based on the players they went up against this preseason. They had some good performances, but who were they playing against? Who was Carolina playing?
Carolina's playing their 3s and 4s, which frankly, for Carolina, which those guys probably will never play a down in the football again in their life.
Right. And then then you're playing against Stidham, and he's looking good. And that's not even his top guy. So that wasn't a good sign in the last game against the Raiders. I'm gonna let them play a regular season game before I make some definitive conclusions. But the problem is, like last year, for example, for a large stretch of the season, they had, not only were they highly ranked, the defense, but they had two of the best players at two of the most impactful positions. They had Matt Judon, who for 3/4 of the year was like, I don't know, he was probably in the conversation for DPOY for at least 70%, 65% of the year. And then you had JC Jackson, who a lot of people thought was one of the best corners, if not the best corner in the league.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those two guys, and still at the end of the year, it turned into a disaster. You couldn't force one punt against Buffalo. Was it in 2 straight games, right? Not even in one game, in 2 straight games. So what am I supposed to think? Even if they start the season playing well, how do I know it's not a mirage? Now, maybe I'll look at it and watch it and say, oh, okay, this is different. But it's just it feels like it's such a long road to get to where you need to go. Mm-hmm. Even if they play well, I'm going to think about last year and how they had all these opportunities and had a good defense. It was highly ranked, all that. And then in the biggest moment when you needed it the most was completely AWOL. So I know Matt Judon has been working on it. He's trying to not fade in the end at the end of the year or whatever. He's been doing specific workouts geared towards avoiding that happening. But I have to see it, man. I have to see them actually perform, and not just, 1 game, 2 games. I need to see how it evolves over multiple games. I'm okay without a number 1 A+ corner. I think you can win with B's on defense, but not having an A+ wide receiver bothers me, because I do think on offense you do need that guy. And we'll see. I just don't know. Like, everybody kept talking about, Cam McGrone hasn't played. He's up and coming athletic linebacker. We just got cut. So all that like hype and pomp and circumstance around that guy was useless. He's nothing. He's not even going to contribute. So I don't know where they're going to get playmakers. They've got some interesting guys on the, like, we'll see what Kyle Duggar can do. We'll see what the Jones brothers in the secondary can do. If Judon bounces back and stuff like that, Uche's still out there. We'll see what kind of years they have. But again, like, if you want me to sit here and just say, I have a ton of confidence that the defense is going to be a lockdown steel curtain type of unit, like, that's laughable. I can't do that right now.
Yeah, I think if there's one guy on the Pats offense, which if he's able to turn it around and have a impact season that could really define their play this year, it's Jonnu Smith. He had an atrocious season last year. And if he could get back to just a semblance of what he was with the Titans, that completely changes the conversation as to what this Patriots offense can do. You can run a 2 tight end set similar to Baltimore. And obviously the wide receivers in Baltimore are a little weaker. I mean, you had Marquise Brown, who's now, with the Arizona Cardinals, but traditionally in their time with Lamar Jackson, they haven't had the strongest receivers. So if a guy like Jonnu was to get healthy again too, that'd be, well, not healthy, but just get back to where he was.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, I agree. I just don't know if, you want me to bet on that? Like, I can't bet on that.
I can't bet on that.
If you look at the trajectory of people that the Patriots have brought in as free agents or trades or whatever in terms of pass catchers, okay? And we don't need to go down the entire list, but by and large, those guys that are brought in, if in year 1 they produce, that's obviously a good sign. But if they don't produce, I don't recall anybody that, in year 2, well, that's when he figured it out and he really exploded in year 2. It's either you come in and you produce, Welker, Moss, those types of guys. Even like a guy like Brandon LaFell or Chris Hogan. They came in obviously at a different level than Moss and Welker, but like LaFell and Hogan were productive. Amendola right away was productive. Didn't take them 2 years to figure it out. I wonder and worry that if they didn't figure it out in year 1, they're not going to figure it out. Now, they did sort of change the offense. They've altered some things. I know that's been a cause for concern, but maybe for those guys, it might help. And maybe Jonnu Smith will pick it up a little bit. I'm not going to bet on it just based on history. But yeah, you're right. That would be huge if any playmakers that you can identify in terms of a pass catching standpoint, that you need them. And that would be huge if they can evolve and kind of materialize in the way that you didn't get last year.
Yeah, I think that'd be huge as well. So obviously the Pats, they definitely got their challenges stacked against them as they head into the regular season. We're gonna hop into our next segment in just a second. But before we do, I want to say that if you guys are not following Down on the Wire at this point, what are you guys doing? We are available everywhere you guys stream podcasts, whether that be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. You can also find the video stream to this show on YouTube, and you can find all of the links, all of them, in the link in our Instagram bio at down.tothewire on the IG. Mark, is there anything that you want to shout out personally of yourself?
You can follow me on Twitter at Mark Dondero.
Yeah. All right. Well, perfect. So, as we hop into our next segment, I wanted to talk about, we started things off with the Patriots. Might as well get into some Pats history here. Talk about Tom Brady. For the, what is it? I think the third or fourth time since 2011, he's now ranked the number one player in the NFL by his peers. Obviously, I feel like it's more a sign of respect now than anything. Tom Brady is still, even last year was performing at a great caliber. And you see, you remember that he almost had that great 27-3 comeback against the Rams, who were the eventual Super Bowl champions. So he was still able to, have good production last year. Then comes the whole fake retirement. Now he's coming back, and everyone was trying to figure out where Tom Brady is going to be in the mix of all this. For the fourth time, he is ranked the number one player. Obviously, according to NFL experts, Pat Mahomes is ranked the best player, and Tom Brady is ranked, I think, 20th best. So that's, probably a more legitimate, realistic ideal of where, he probably belongs in that list, but so many of his peers rank him at this spot. What were your thoughts on that, Mark?
I understand why he was ranked there, but I'm going to tell you this right now about the Bucs and Tom Brady. I just don't think they have a chance this year because he's not in it. He's not into it. Like, I don't know why he went away for 11 days. He's retired. He's unretired. The Raiders, the Dolphins, like that does not smell. Here's the thing that I know. Okay. We here in New England.
Yeah.
We saw, you're younger than I am, but we saw, at least people my age, enough championships to know, and you've seen enough too, to know kind of what a championship team and season look like and smell like and sound like and feel like. Okay. Now, this isn't the Patriots. This is the Bucs, and they don't have the culture the Patriots had in their heyday. I cannot imagine that a guy that's like, I'm not going to call him like checked out, but doesn't appear to be all 100% in. I do not see how they're going to find a way to win the Super Bowl this year. He just feels like he's got too many other things going on. He was half out in the offseason. He comes back. All the speculation about did he want to be in Vegas and did he want to be in Miami? It just feels messy. It doesn't feel like Tom Brady. So right now, today, I don't think he's the number one player in the NFL. I understand why they voted on that. But I think he is not going to have his best year, which isn't saying much. He's 45 years old.
What are you expecting of the guy?
His head is in too many other places right now. And I don't think he's got the focus necessary. Now, obviously, he'll lock in for the regular season. And I will give him this. The NFC is much weaker than we've seen it in a lot of years. So I don't think there's going to be, all these teams out of the NFC that are going to be challenging for the Super Bowl. So that will help him. They should be right in it at the end. But if you want me to pick him to win the Super Bowl, I can't do it. Like he just seems too distracted and like there's too many other things going on in his life to be as hyper-focused on football as you have to be and as a team has to be in order to win the Super Bowl.
Mark, did you see that? Did you see that press conference with him when he was asked about it? He seemed totally checked out. He's being defensive about where he was. He wasn't really, given any details. If he wanted to say he took a vacation with his family, he could easily have said that. But like, I'm not really buying into this whole Masked Singer crap. I'm not getting into any of that. But he was all defensive during his press conference, and I just don't get it. Like, he'll lock in for the start of the regular season, and he'll basically go out there and he'll beat Tom Brady and, everything will be systems go. But I don't know how really into it he'll be.
Yeah, it's just, like I just can't buy it. I've seen him. I've watched him for too long.
Yeah.
Like, he just doesn't seem locked in. I'm sure he'll go out there. Like, even his quote said as much. He was like, I forget exactly where or when he said it. I don't think it was during the press conference the other day, but he said something like, I've been playing football a long time. It's not going to take me long to figure out or warm up or whatever he said, which is true.
Yeah, you can make the case because after the 4-game suspension in 2016, he came back at 39. Right, he had 4 weeks off and was able to be lights out against the Browns. Again, it was against the Browns, which is a preseason game essentially. But yeah,
those Browns especially. And I get it. They have Julio Jones now, if he can find a little bit of the fountain of youth or something, that's like another big piece. But again, I don't see it. They've had some injury issues. His center, they lost Jensen. Like, I think they'll be good. Obviously, Tom Brady's always good. He's going to be good. But if you're talking about winning the Super Bowl, that's a whole nother level of focus and production and circumstances that need to fall your way. I don't see that happening. I don't think the Bucs are going to win it. I honestly see the NFC playoffs going a lot like they went last year.
Yeah, I think you can make a case for that. It is interesting how the dynamic has completely shifted. Like, during my time growing up, it was pretty much the Pats, whatever team Peyton Manning was on, whether that be the Colts or the Broncos, the Steelers, and then Joe Flacco can maybe bite you, once here or there. And that was it. That was your entire AFC picture. Now there's too many teams to count, and the Patriots could finish second in the division behind the Bills, and you're not guaranteed a playoff spot with how competitive it is and the extra playoff spots added. That's how crazy it is.
I wonder if there's a bet that you could make where which conference the Super Bowl champion is going to come out of, because I just can't imagine the NFC does it. It's just too competitive in the AFC. You look up and down the roster, the just the teams. It's just, I mean, I've got different tiers that I've sort of categorized them in. You've got, like, I put that first tier, I have sort of, I think the Chargers, I put the Chiefs, the Bills, and I want to say the Bengals.
Okay.
I put the Bengals in that first tier just because they were in the Super Bowl, and I think they addressed a lot of their offensive line needs. Then the next tier, you get teams like, and I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, the Colts, the Raiders. Who am I forgetting out there? Is there another AFC West team? You
already say the Chargers, the Broncos.
The Broncos, they're probably in that second group. Yeah. So I have the Dolphins in the second group. I think the Dolphins are going to be good. So, there's a lot of teams. The Ravens are probably in that second group of teams. Those are all, like, Lamar Jackson, like, they could be good. They could be bad. They could be really good. Like, I don't know. But they got so many good quarterbacks, a lot of good teams, a lot of teams that have been there, been in the playoffs. It's going to be a super hard conference to crack. And I can't imagine one of those teams, the team that wins it, is going to lose in the Super Bowl. It just feels like, the Rams did almost everything they could to lose that game last year. And Tampa, like I said, I'm not buying on them. So after Tampa and the Rams in the NFC, where are you looking? Like, I think Dallas's window is closed. We'll see what Trey Lance can do, but I don't know if San Francisco, with Lance in his first year starting, is going to be a Super Bowl team.
They already brought back Jimmy Garoppolo, so there are some doubts there.
Yeah, so I don't know about them. Philadelphia is intriguing to me, but a Super Bowl team, like, I can't go there yet. Like, I got to see more from them. And yeah, like Green Bay, like, they lose Devontae Adams. I don't think, like, Aaron Rodgers, if he couldn't do it when he had all those weapons, he's not doing it now. They'll be good and, a team to be reckoned with, but I don't think they're going to be a real, true Super Bowl contender. So
yeah, no.
I just don't see it in the end. Like the Vikings, I'm not a Kirk Cousins believer. I don't see that happening. I don't see the NFC. Like, I don't see how the NFC is going to be able to really give the AFC much of a fight.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. When I was talking about the ratings, Brady ranked 1 by the players, Mahomes ranked 1 by the experts. I got to wonder, Mahomes now missing a guy like Tyreek Hill, Brady gaining some weapons, but also gaining age. He's getting older, so seems to be out of it. Doesn't really seem to be as dialed in as he is in past years. You don't think the Bucs are going to get too far in the playoffs, but with the loss of a guy like Tyreek Hill to the Chiefs, what team do you think will get further in the playoffs? Do you think it'll be the Bucs, or do you think it'll be the Chiefs?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it'll be close.
Yeah.
I think they're both going to lose in the divisional round.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. If I had to say, I'll say the Bucs will get further. I think the Bucs could find a way to get to the championship game, not win it, but get there. Just because the NFC is so weak and just because the AFC is so loaded. Now, with that being said, I do not expect Patrick Mahomes to take a step back. Do you understand? Like, I do not.
No, yeah.
I think that they will still be good. Now, will they have the dynamic playmaker on the outside that they need to win the Super Bowl? I think that will hurt the Chiefs in the biggest moments, in the biggest games during the fourth quarter, whatever. But by and large, I do think that Mahomes will be fine. I think the Chiefs will look like the Chiefs. I think they'll put up a lot of points. Their offense will be one of the best in the league. It'll just come down to when you're going up against a team near on your level, will the loss of Hill, who's like a special player, will that hurt you at that point? Now, maybe they'll have somebody emerge, and a guy akin to Tyreek Hill will become the next go-to guy for Mahomes. I don't know. I don't expect, like I said, I think they'll be right there. They'll resemble the team we've seen. I just don't think they're going to be quite the same. I mean, that's a bona fide number one guy, like one of the best in the league. You can't just drop him and expect no drop off. So I think they're going to be fine overall. They're going to look like the Chiefs, but in the biggest moments, not having Hill might come back, especially if you face a team like Buffalo, they're my pick to win it all this year. You know, a team like that who has weapons, has a defense, has experience, has been in those games. You know, that's where I think it could burn the Chiefs. But I think they're going to look like the Kansas City Chiefs, and Mahomes is going to look like Mahomes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I think most likely it's going to, I mean, you remember, we're going to be jumping over to MLB news in just a little bit, but I mean, if you remember kind of the Red Sox after they lost David Ortiz, there was a big kind of missing hole in that lineup where a lot of power used to be. That's going to be something similar of a hole as to what you're going to see with Tyreek Hill gone. There's going to be a large amount of pop taken out of that lineup, and maybe a guy like McCole Hardman can come in and do a job there. I know they got some running back help, so they might be able to make up some ground there, but I think that, you know, Kelsey's going to be leaned on a lot more, which is going to be interesting with him, you know, getting up there in age. I think he's still, you know, one of the top tight ends in the league. I took him on my fantasy team, so I have confidence that he's going to be out there and doing well. But the amount that Mahomes is going to have to lean on him is definitely going to increase with the loss of Hill.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at, I mean, that's fine if you want to bring up Hardman, but like take a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, who, when he had Antonio Brown back a few years ago before Brown went nuts, he was really good as the number 2, you know? And then when he became the number 1, he wasn't as good at being the number 1 or in that role. I don't know if now, it's funny, what team is Juju Smith-Schuster on now? Is he on KC?
Yeah, he's on KC.
So he's on KC. So maybe he sort of, and he was a young dude, maybe he recaptures some of that and he becomes the next dynamic weapon for Pat Mahomes. So he could become his number 1. I don't know how that's going to, but you just don't know when you lose that number 1 guy. And I know they still have Kelsey. There's a trickle down effect, and we just don't know how that's going to materialize in terms of who will be Mahomes' go-to weapons. Like I said, I think they're going to be fine, but Hill, that was the guy. Defense is focused on him. I don't know, once defenses sort of figure out and they look at what the Chiefs, Sans, Hill look like, if they start taking things away, I don't know how Kansas City will then be able to adjust. So we're going to just have to wait and see. But overall, I think they're going to be all right offensively.
Yeah, I mean, you typically, you know, you can think of offensive lineups, and you can have a guy that's essentially a 1A receiver. That's essentially your Tyreek Hills. Trying to think of other guys, but you know, those are other guys that are going to be 1A receivers.
Yeah.
And AB when he was in Pittsburgh was what I was also going to say. But Juju Smith-Schuster, when he was in Pittsburgh, it was almost kind of a 1A, 1B situation with how good that dynamic duo was. When he took over in Pittsburgh, he kind of just stayed as a 1B. It wasn't that he was a direct 2, but he just didn't have that extra oomph to get over the edge. And I think by, you know, him being down in KC, you're going to have those other targets with Kelsey. Mahomes is going to be able to use him in the right situations, and that he'll be able to be as strong as he can be.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting because Mahomes is so good, and I don't disagree with him being, I mean, if I had to start a team right now for this season, I'm probably still taking him.
Yeah.
Make a case for Josh Allen, I guess, but I mean, Mahomes, like, he's still probably the best guy. So I get it. And I think that you're going to see that when you got a guy that good, you're never a bad offense. So that's especially when you factor in Andy Reid and his, you know, ingenuity and all the creative plays and, you know, just his track record as a play caller and a designer of plays. They'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, they'll be fine. So obviously, you know, that's kind of what we have in store for NFL news. We're going to jump over to MLB right now. You know, I was kind of hinting it with, you know, the Red Sox and them missing some pop out of their lineup. Obviously, the Red Sox this year have kind of fallen flat. There haven't been a really too many successes. You know, there was some, you know, it was a spark in the beginning of the season, and, you know, so far it's just kind of been very middle of the road. They're sitting at last place in the AL East. And now as the countdown is on, I think last night the Inside the Monster pod put out that the magic number was 9 games that they had to avoid losing and to stay in the playoff race. Now that number is down to 8 as they lost to the Minnesota Twins. The countdown is on. And with that being said, a lot of people are wondering what the futures are going to hold for Chaim Bloom, for Alex Cora, and Sam Kennedy ended up coming out and saying that he's comfortable saying that both of those guys are going to be back next year for the Sox. In your opinion, what are your thoughts on that?
Not a surprise. I mean, what did you expect? Like, that was obviously going to be the case. You did not bring in Chaim Bloom. You knew what his track record was. You knew what he was trying to do. You knew his MO. Like, you didn't bring him in for 2 years or whatever it's been, 2.5 years. Like, it was going to be him playing the long game. Okay. Yeah. You had a guy here that was all about immediate gratification, instant gratification. Dave Dombrowski, that's what he did. He disregarded the farm. He went out for the big names, the big fish, brought them in, and you tried to win immediately. And it worked for a season. Okay. And then you had to go back and recalibrate. But there was no question in my mind that, Alex Cora wasn't going to go anywhere because I think they still think he's too good of a manager. I don't think he's had a great year, but I'm not ready to fire him or something like that. I will criticize him. I think he's done some things this year, and the team as a result hasn't been in the best position to win, and that's in part on him. So I'll criticize him a little bit for what they've done this year, but I'm not ready to fire him. He's still a really good manager. I think there's still a future there and things that he can do. So, but in terms of Bloom, they weren't going to get rid of him. That's not even a discussion at this point. You don't know how any of his draft picks are going to pan out. And by the way, last year they were in the ALCS and had won 2 games. They were 2 games from the World Series. Mm-hmm. Like, in the division this year is really strong. Now, not an excuse, but it's not like they're playing these cupcakes. Like, it's an embarrassment, their record against the American League East, but it's a good division. Like, they haven't had a good year. It's not just like what's going on with Xander Bogaerts. He'll be the first to tell you he hasn't had a great year. What's he got, 9-10 home runs?
I think
that's
so.
like Omar Vizquel numbers. Like, that's a disgrace for the type of player that he is. I know he's not A-Rod, but you should be hitting more than 10 home runs if you're Xander Bogaerts, and we're talking about a $300+ million contract or whatever. So Bloom was obviously going to be here. I'm not surprised whatsoever. He's going to get another year. He's probably going to get another year after that. They've got to see how some of those young guys materialize. The Marcelo Mayers, that kid. Now, I don't even know who drafted him. I might have been Bloom.
Bloom was Marcelo Mayer. That was in 2020. 2021 is when we drafted him. It was a result of the 2020 season, which was statistically our worst in history. It was the highest that we've ever picked because we had never been that bad, I think, at least since the 60s. So, and obviously that was a shortened season too. But
they got that kid who's 18 years old right now. They're going crazy about him. His name is Miguel Bleis. I don't even know.
I think it's Blaze or something like
that.
Yeah.
Something like that. But he is supposedly the next Mookie Betts. He's like 6'3", he's 5 tools. Now, who knows? But that is the guy where, based on what I've read, if you call and ask about him in a trade, they laugh at you, the Red Sox. So
really,
that's a guy to get excited about. And if that's a Bloom guy, which I believe it is, he's 18. I don't know how many. Bloom's been here a few years. That's a guy that you got to see. Like, what do players like that do in the next few years? Because it's just so early. You knew you were playing the long game with Chaim Bloom. I am not surprised whatsoever. And frankly, I support it. Like, he's done some things this year I didn't understand. Jackie Bradley Jr., Rich Hill, didn't understand. Travis Shaw, he brought him back. Didn't understand that. Didn't like that. Recycling those, no. But overall, I still do think, a lot of the acquisitions have worked out. Kike Hernandez worked out. Alex Verdugo has worked out. Not Mookie Betts, but he's worked out. Kyle Schwarber obviously worked out. Even Tommy Pham has worked out. Guys like that worked out. So overall, he's done some good things. Other things, not as much. But I'm not getting rid of him when I know his MO and I know he wants to play the long game. I agree with the Red Sox doing this, and I'm not surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, the only thing I'm wondering, though, with that is when are we finally going to see those real and true steps towards building that championship roster? I know it's slow, and I know that he's trying to take a page out of the Tampa Bay Rays textbook. I get that. But at the same time, we're not the Tampa Bay Rays. We're not the Kansas City Royals. We are the Boston Red Sox, and we do have the money to go out and, spend on some guys. Now, I'm not saying spend stupidly like how Dave Dombrowski did at certain points and, completely blow up the farm system. I appreciate having a somewhat decent farm system, but at a certain point, it's like, all right, when are we going to see the actual, current positive return? I'm always told about, oh, this guy's really going to be a great impact when he gets to AA, and, then they fizzle out and then nothing ever comes of it. So I'm just really wondering when are we finally going to see some, true impact, leading to, true wins on the field?
Yeah. What I was hoping for when they got him was essentially Theo Epstein. Like Theo Epstein was able to use the analytics part of the game and mesh that with the Red Sox checkbook. And he would get guys and get the big names, but also supplement the big names with the little ancillary pieces. It feels like Chaim Bloom worries too much about the ancillary pieces and forgets that, hey, you married a rich girl. Like now you're in this rich family. Like you can, you want to get that country club membership, go ahead. Like it might not have been money that you had, but now you got money. So like, don't be afraid to splurge a little bit. It feels like he hasn't quite figured that out. We'll see Trevor Story. I'd like a little bit more of that mentality, especially going into the offseason where, we can do the analytics and all the things that you learned in Tampa, but don't forget this is the Red Sox. Now, I don't know what the owners are telling them, and they are over the luxury tax threshold, so it's not like they have a cheap payroll right now, but you got to do what you got to do to win. And, you can't afford to have a black hole at first base half the season.
2 years at this point.
Red Sox. Like,
it's been 2 years. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
You need to fix that and get that fixed quickly. So I would like him to be more aggressive in those instances and get a guy that's a real MLB player, not some recycled cheapo, a real player that can add, that's an upgrade. So there's things to criticize, but overall, I still am interested in being in business with Chaim Bloom and support him for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can understand the idea of still supporting Bloom here, but that guy definitely needs a PR person. He can have some interesting communication skills with guys. The other thing too with him is that, I mean, I understand Moneyball. It's a great movie with Billy Beane. It has not resulted in a World Series championship yet. The closest the Rays got, they lost because they thought it was best analytically to take Blake Snell out of that game. Now, could it have been? Sure, but they took him out and saying, oh, we need to save you for Game 7. Game 7 isn't something that's promised. The actual closest team that you can say that has won a championship is the 2015 Kansas City Royals. And they had to play a very, very small market. But even they at a certain point had to go out and say, all right, we're making a real run at another World Series appearance, guys. What should we do? And they go out and they get Johnny Cueto. And they actually make a real big boy move, and they go out there and they get a guy like that. I just don't know if Chaim Bloom has that in him to say, all right, we're making a real competitive move. Maybe I have to lose a little bit on the prospect side so I can get a really good player. I don't know if he has that in him.
Right. And eventually the cows will come home to roost or whatever, and we're going to figure it out. But that's what I was saying. Like when, I don't remember what they did in 2004, like who they traded Nomar, that was a move. But Theo, guys like that, they're not afraid. They do the analytics. But they also, like I said, supplement that with the big boy moves, as you said, which they need to do. And I'm with you. I'm not, like Trevor Story was sort of that, but he wasn't a trade deadline acquisition. He needs to prove that he's willing to do that and make that type of move.
Trevor Story actually gave me a lot of promise like that. No, Trevor Story gave me promise like that because I saw the move and I was like, wow, Chaim Bloom's actually going out and really paying for a second baseman. Then there comes that, I don't know if you ever remember this, but there was essentially a gaffe that Trevor Story had during spring training where he ended up saying, yeah, I'm really excited to play second base this year. And everyone started taking the words this year and picking that apart saying, oh, is there some backroom deal of saying, oh, like just play second base this year and, shortstop yours when Xander leaves. And, for second base, that's pretty decent money, but for a shortstop, that's kind of a steal on a contract. So a lot of people, that even kind of changed my mind on saying, oh, is he still playing cheap there?
Yeah, probably. That's probably what's so. Again, he'll get a pass for this year. Obviously, they're going to give him one, and it just didn't work out. And he had some guys that didn't perform all that well. And like I said, I put most of this, on the players more so than Bloom deserves a big chunk. But I think the players and not just flat out not getting it done was the biggest story. We'll see going forward. obviously you have to have some thump in the lineup. You have to have some pitching. So if he continues to just, try to grow the garden and not go out there and spend, like, I need more Trevor Story type moves. Like, not just one, I need more of those pitchers, relievers. So if he can go out and do that going into next year, we'll see. And some of my faith will be restored. Otherwise, then it's going to be real questionable, especially if they go into next year and they're struggling again, because this year's over. Like, I don't care about
this year's over. I'm not counting down the games. It's
no,
you can,
we're talking about, they can't lose 8 more games. It's over.
You can put a bow on it. It's over at this point. But no, I am surprised though that Alex Cora is as, his job security is as certain as Sam Kennedy puts it, because for Chaim Bloom, I know that, him and Alex Cora have had at least publicly some sort of a back and forth, especially after the trade of Christian Vazquez. There was, talks that there was, some animosity in that clubhouse and people were unsure of how it's going to go. And sometimes Alex Cora doesn't want to always play, play the game analytically the way Chaim Bloom does. So I would have thought that, after a not so successful season, you can do what a lot of teams do is, you blame the manager and you take a guy like that out. And then, Chaim Bloom can get his, analytical guy that's going to do whatever he says. So I am surprised that was the case.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's gotten to the point where it's a problem within the organization. There might be a little bit of tension, but there's always like some tension with bosses and people above you. And so I don't think it's a thing, if you know what I mean, yet.
Yeah.
It's worth monitoring. We'll see where it goes. And like I said, I think this will be a big off season, and for not just Bloom, but the ownership group, and to see where they end up spending their money. I just don't think the Bloom core dynamic is a thing yet. It's worth monitoring. I'm not saying they haven't missed the mark in terms of how they view things at all. I don't know if there's enough animosity there for it to be a true problem. So we'll see where it goes. But Bloom is definitely going to have to perform this offseason. He's going to have to show that, like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. If it gets to next trade deadline and we're still in this position, where do you think the Red Sox go?
Well, I think that would then we'd be having different conversations. And then I think you could talk about Chaim Bloom's job. Talk about it. Because if it's another year and I've seen no movement from some of the prospects and there's still like holes in the lineup and I didn't see, they lose Xander Bogaerts, say, we'll see if Devers is still flapping in the wind and I've got nobody else that has been brought in. Well, now it's like, what are we doing? Like, how many years are we going to play this game? This is Boston. Like, nobody wants to play that because there's no guarantee. It's not like you just can guarantee a championship with patience. Like, let's get back in the game here. This was his chance. He's figuring out a bridge year, whatever you want to call it. Next year, I better see some moves made with conviction, whether that's bringing up guys from AAA or AA or whatever and incorporating them into the major league roster or trading other pieces to get established stars. I need to see something happen or else it will be a different conversation with Bloom.
Yeah, I think it could definitely be a different conversation next year. Obviously, one of the teams that they're going to have to try to catch, now next year, this season, like you said, is over at this point. But one of the teams they're going to have to try to catch next year is the New York Yankees, who are having a very interesting, series. They're having a very interesting August. I saw one tweet that said that statistically they're having the worst August season in MLB history, which I'm not sure of the validity of that, but it's probably not one of the better ones with the way that they've been performing. And there's just been a slew of just injuries and different things kind of going wrong for them. Aaron Judge is still chugging along. He just hit his 50th home run last night. So there's no questions with him, but everything else is kind of fallen by the wayside there. And one of the things that I saw, which was interesting, is their closer, Aroldis Chapman, just got placed on the 15-day DL or IL now after getting an infection from a recent leg tattoo. And I don't know, this was just one of those funny stories that I wanted to take a look at and really just, kind of give some thoughts on, just because everything is going wrong for them. And then this freaking happens. And it's just like, man, they cannot catch a break right now. Are they going to just completely collapse come to the postseason?
I don't think so. Chapman is a bum. Like, I can't stand that guy. I don't like that guy whatsoever. I root against him. It was fun watching him throw 104 miles an hour or whatever it is, but like, that guy is a loser.
Yeah, he's a bad dude.
Yeah, and you can't. I mean, you just simply can't have that happen. You're struggling. You're going down the stretch. You get an infection from a tattoo. I don't care. That's not your fault. You can't have it happen. So,
No.
it does. I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees this year, if their season sort of unfolds a little bit like we saw the Red Sox last year, when
Okay.
a lot of people jumped off during that time after the trade deadline. I think it was part of August. They didn't look the same, and then they recaptured it and they found it come postseason time, and they made a run. I could see that happening with the Yankees. Yeah, not predicting it. Those are two different teams, different situations. But I mean, I'm not going to call them frauds. They got out to such a big lead in a really strong division. It's been a disaster right now, but I think they're going to find some way of piecing it back together. And I think before they get eliminated, we're going to see the old earlier in the year Yankees reemerge, at least in some capacity. Whether
It'll
it's
just
good teams, I don't know, in a playoff series, but we will see that team come back a little bit in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I do wonder how they're going to face how they'll fare against teams like Houston and whatnot as they do get into it. The wild card will be interesting because have the extra team. You have Seattle, who's making a run. You have the Blue Jays, obviously the Orioles coming out of nowhere. So there are obviously teams that'll make an interesting bid like that. But I do agree. I think the Yankees, they'll get some sort of a glimpse as to what they were back, but I just don't think that they're gonna look the same. I think that something has shifted within that clubhouse. I don't know if it's anything with Aaron Boone necessarily, but something has definitely just gone wrong there.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that I would be on the lookout for, Judge has had such a good year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if come playoff time, it's like a different dude. If it's just some guy, like you forget about the 58 home runs or whatever he's going to hit, and it's just a guy that struggles. The playoffs are different. That's why it's tough, justifying giving all that money to those types of players, because it's great that they have the production during the regular season, but come playoff time, your best guy might be Daniel Murphy or Todd Walker or last year Kike Hernandez, who's out of his mind.
Yeah.
You just never know where it's going to come from. So I wouldn't be surprised if Judge comes down a tick, but the team is still good. They've been there. I don't think they're going to just roll over and then die once they get to the playoffs like we saw. It could happen, but I wouldn't bet on that. I still think we're going to see the Yankees from May and June and early in the year one more time before the year.
You think they'll make a comeback? Yeah.
I think they're going to look like the Yankees of earlier in the year at some point. I don't know if that'll be enough. I don't know if they'll be able to recapture it enough, but we'll see them, the old Yankees from earlier in the year at some point, I think.
All right. I mean, we'll obviously have to wait and see how that all pans out later in the season. But Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show. Unfortunately, we are now down to the wire, which means that we're going to wrap up what we talked about in this episode today and send all you great listeners on your way. Obviously, WEEI's very own Mark Dondero, former Bryant University alum. Too many titles for me to even say. Thank you for coming on the show, man. It was a blast to have you.
Hey, a lot of fun, Brian. Great job. You have a great product here, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So on the show today, we ended up breaking down the Pats as they head into week 1, gave our thoughts on that week 3 preseason disaster on Mac Jones's part against the Raiders. After that, we jumped into Tom Brady being ranked as the number 1 player in the NFL by his peers and, thought and gave our opinions as to who's going to have the better year with their teams, either Tom Brady or Pat Mahomes. After that, we jumped into MLB news, talked about Cora and Chaim Bloom's job security being confirmed by Sam Kennedy. We gave our thoughts on, where they kind of stand with that right now. And then finally, we wrapped things up talking about Aroldis Chapman, his leg tattoo, and the future of the Yankees. Obviously, thank you guys so much for listening. I shouted out all the social medias earlier. So from Down the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Mark Dondero.
And we hope you guys have a great day. Take care and peace out.